Welcome. My name is Tracy Gray, and I am very pleased to be here today to talk about ways that you can personalize your professional development in writing. I am the project director for the Power Up What Works project here in Washington, D.C., and I'm joined today by my two colleagues, Tina Bloom from EDC and Judy Zorfis, also from EDC, coming to us from the Boston area. Would you like to say hello, Tina and Judy?
Hi, this is Judy Zorfis. Glad you could all join us today.
Okay, Tina must be just trying to get her mic to work. So why don't we begin with our presentation? Today we're going to be featuring our Power Up What Works website. We're going to be focused on the purpose of this session. We're going to be telling you a little bit about Power Up What Works. We're going to offer a quick tour so you can get a sense of the rich nature of our resources, materials, and tools. And then we're going to talk about how you can customize your English language arts and writing professional development. We're then going to open up the floor for discussion and talk about next steps and ways that Power Up can work with you and your colleagues to enhance teaching and learning. Power Up is funded by the U.S. Department of Education, the Office of Special Education Programs. We are a free website that has no login and no registration requirements to ensure that Power Up is accessible and available to everyone with no hassle. Our overarching goal for Power Up is to ensure that students with disabilities and their classmates are college and career ready. How do we go about doing that? By connecting evidence-based practices with technology, universal design for learning, and differentiated instruction. What we've done with Power Up is identify the three critical components to making all of those factors that I just talked about work. We offer resources related to Power Up Your Classroom, Power Up Your Professional Development, and Power Up Your School. Those three components underscore our diverse audiences. The resources for Power Up Your Classroom are those that speak to the needs of teachers. The Power Up Your Professional Development are resources and materials and tools for professional development coordinators, teacher educators, and others who are involved in working with both pre-service and in-service teachers. And last, we have Power Up Your School. Those resources are focused on the needs of administrators and school leaders who are really trying to leverage their technology dollars to ensure that technology is implemented effectively throughout the school. So let's move on to our next slide, where we're going to now be able to take a quick tour of Power Up What Works. Judy's going to highlight the specific areas on the site and then turn it over to Tina. So Judy, why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much, Tracy. Yes, let's look at Power Up, and I'm going to thank Caroline, our colleague, in advance since she's driving the website. Here's the home page of coming up in just a second. There are those children who are doing it because their teacher has been using Power Up. So Power Up is organized, as Tracy said, in terms of Power Up Your Classroom, Power Up Your School, and Power Up Your Professional Development. Let's also look at the left because you could see that you could gather background information about Power Up, what our goals are, and what our overall approach is. We have a way to help you get started with Power Up, and we have a way to browse all resources and a way to look at our blog, which is frequently updated, and that includes good information that you can use repeatedly. You can keep coming back and finding more information that you could use that's just ready for you to implement in your classroom. We call that kind of our grab and go ideas. Just look at the getting started one moment, so when you come into Power Up, that you can find out where you can find out about the latest technology trends, find out about strategies and ideas. You can find out about technology tools, how you can use Power professional development, and how you can improve implementation. These are all entry points, as well as entry points for teachers, those doing professional development, and those who are tech educators, and for administrators. So we wanted to make sure that when you got to get started, when you were ready to get started, you immediately could get something that was of value and relevant to you. Well, I want to get started, but I'm going to go to Power Up Your Classroom in preparation for today's focus in English language arts, and in particular, writing. In our Power Up Your section, you'll be able to find instructional strategy guides, and we'll be looking at one in. You'll be finding ways to use technology, formative assessment. We have a section on universal design for learning and how to translate those principles into practice, and another section on ways to explore ideas as a way to use the technology tools you have available. I'm focusing on the instructional strategies. And when Tina talks about writing, she's going to be looking at pre-writing, drafting, and reviewing. But I'm going to show you what an instructional strategy guide looks like by opening up pre-writing. You can open up the pre-writing instructional strategy guide. All of our 11 English language arts instructional strategy guides and our 8 math instructional strategy guides follow the same format. So in pre-writing, we have an introduction, and then we have a slide that Caroline will open. This slideshow is just visual information, and it is captioned in terms of the ways in which you could see happening. You could get a printout of what it is. We give basic information, and that Tina has used this in professional development as a way for everyone to be on the same page, for everyone to have a shared context. I'm going to go through all of our 18 slides, but we hope you do it. Let's go and look at the Teach with Tech. The Teach with Tech section that provides evidence-based practices, and they're organized in 3 categories. 3 categories are evidence, provide direct instruction, help students write for a variety of purposes, engage students in online assessment. Tina will look at this in a little more detail. What I want you to see is that in the right side, in that box on the right-hand column, is that we have the common state standards that align to writing. We have 3 standards, and they come right out of the Common Core. We know that for those states not adopted the Common Core, that these standards very much overlap with state standards. It's all very similar as compared to some of those states. So if you scroll down, Caroline, you see that for each one of our headings, each step, such as provide direct instruction, we then list out suggested strategies. These strategies become a springboard for you to think further about using technologies that you have in your school, in your classroom to support you, and thinking more about how you can differentiate these to meet the diverse needs. You can see that number 2, encourage brainstorming and mind mapping. We give you links to really good websites, and we've extended that with a box that says ways to help begin brainstorming. In each set of strategies, we offer one instructional strategy that's further elaborated, that goes into more detail. People say that they've used this for their own self-study, their own self-professional development, and you'll see how Tina is going to be using some of these things, talks about how it could be used for a blended development approach. Let's scroll down a little more, Caroline. You can see that there are additional strategies under our headings. Step 2, write for a variety of purposes. Step 3, engage students in formative assessment. All of these are evidence-based from the IES practice guides or other resources. Let's look for a moment at our lesson. It's under that category of support materials. In each one of our instructional guides, we have a case study, a lesson that is being carried out. Let's open that one, Caroline, so we could just see how these are set up. This one is about pre-writing, getting started, and we always set the context about the teacher. This happens to be Mrs. Cleary in a 4th grade. She has students with many diverse needs. She's helping them to work like scientists and to write their science reports in a way that captures key elements. She focuses on core standards, and yet she has a specific lesson objective that takes the Common Core and personalizes this instruction, but yet she knows she's teaching to the Common Core. These are the technical tools that she has access to, and she thinks about. Along the top left-hand column, you'll see that we have outlined the lesson, divided into 3 before the students are going to engage in pre-writing, when they are engaging during pre-writing, and after they have completed pre-writing. Many people have told us that this is valuable for lesson planning, and I think we'll reiterate that later. Let's just scroll down a little from those steps of the lesson that you see at the top left. We now have a much longer narrative, a way that describes what Mrs. Cleary is doing. It's as if you were visiting her classroom, you opened the door, you came right in, and you saw Mrs. Cleary in action, how she provided instruction to students using some of those evidence practices, how she differentiated instruction, how she was applying principles of universal design for learning, and how she naturally and meaningfully integrated the technology tools she had access to. You'll see given her students a template for a lab report. We'll scroll down a little more, and it shows how she scaffolded instruction, how she supported those students, how after writing she brought them together, and how she gave them a lab report checklist, gave them a rubric, a way for them to have to know what was expected of them. At the very, if we go down to the way bottom, we'll see that Mrs. Cleary did on her lesson. She wanted to see, well, what can I do to improve it in the future? So every one of our lessons in action is set up. Let's continue through the instruction guide and see what additional support we have. Besides the lesson in action, the case, we have quick views these are little videos. And this, we have two here, ways to use and wikis, which are great for pre-writing, drafting, and reviewing, and also using text. Let's just open using text, the second one, and let's just see this. We hope to Power Up that you'll want to play these. This one is 4 minutes long, all closed caption, and you can, they all have captions, and you can see that they have wonderful graphics, and we're not going to play it so you can hear it, but there is a voiceover that goes through of the parts of this. Again, these are great within workshops. These are great for people on their own. They're great conversation starters. Thanks, Caroline. Let's just see what else we have, because our instruction guides are very comprehensive. We have our overview. We have specific strategies. We have the lesson in action. We have videos. Also have review the research. We have current articles, research that you could use to validate what you're doing, to show that what you're doing is based on the research. For those of you out there who are also involved in professional development, let's scroll back up, Caroline, to show how you could link to relevant professional materials. You could do a search for resources. Okay, let's just a little, and professional development materials, and we have materials that allow somebody who is doing coaching, team meetings, special learning communities, workshops, to see what they could do in terms of supporting the teachers and how they could utilize what's right there within different collaborative professional development settings, sometimes and sometimes face-to-face. Any questions? Okay. Come to me earlier in the day, and someone was saying, any material that would allow teachers to further differentiate in part of PD? And yes, in fact, I was pointing out to this person that I was talking to that we have that. So Caroline, if you open that up, the Using PD Pre-Writing, and straight down to page 4, to that, I want everyone to see this terrific chart. Definitely been used in professional development. Differentiate the strategy for pre-writing. Along the left-hand column, we have our 3 categories, our evidence-based practices. And in the middle column, we have all of those strategies. And you'll see that the column is blank. And the purpose for that is for based on the students within a school, their needs, their abilities, the technology that's accessible, teachers can work together to think, how can we use this strategy as a starting point and further differentiate it for our students? So this has been a really valuable development, kind of a handout or a conversation starter. Go back to our home page, Caroline, and explain that many people are taking and using Power Up for their professional development. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back, I'm going to turn it over to Tina, who is an experienced professional developer, someone who has guided the profession of many teams. And she's going to tell you about an ongoing professional development approach that has integrated Power. Tina?
Okay, I'm here. Hi, everyone. My microphone is now working. Thank you, Judy. What we're going to do is talk about how one school used Power Up resources to support the teaching of writing skills. And thanks again, Caroline, for driving this. Brightview School, which is located in Vermont, is a private grade 4 to 8 school that provides individualized instruction based on learning styles and needs. And it specializes in providing education for students with learning difficulties and attentional issues. Their overall professional development goal was to integrate technology into the writing process to allow for all students, including those with disabilities, to meet the Common Core standards in writing. And their overall goal is using and developing ongoing professional development throughout the year. So let's move on to the next slide and talk a little bit about what they did. First, last summer, teachers at the Brightview School participated in an English language arts training initiative. This week-long workshop, which was attended by both teachers and the PD facilitators, was on teaching informative and narrative writing. During that workshop, there wasn't as much emphasis on the use of technology to support writing skills. That particular workshop focused more on understanding the differences between the genres, using mentor texts, how to choose mentor texts, and then, of course, developing skills and strategies to teach those particular genres. And this was the first step in the ongoing professional development plan. Next, what happened was the PD facilitators received face-to-face training to prepare for their moderating and facilitating professional learning communities, which would be occurring during the school year. And then the third step was teachers participating in the PLCs, which were led by the facilitators, and that's going to be our focus for today. Let's move on to the next slide now. So what are PLCs for teachers, and how did they actually work? The PLC met every other week and included blended learning, and this is where the technology started to be used as a resource. It was a combination of technology, face-to-face connections, and more traditional materials to help teachers plan writing units. The meetings were held every other week. Facilitators provided tools for teaching and learning, and they created what we call a writing playlist that utilized materials and resources on the PowerUp website. These resources gave teachers the tools that they could use for their own learning as well as in the classroom to provide accessible instruction in writing skills. So now what we're going to do is take a look at some of the resources on the PowerUp website. Let's move to the home page of the PowerUp website. And what we'll do is we'll look at some of the rich resources for teaching writing that are available on the website. Judy did a great job starting off by showing you an overview of the instructional strategy guide. In terms of PD support material, Judy showed you already. Judy already showed you the PD resources for ELA strategies. Specifically page 4, which was differentiating the strategy in pre-writing, and she did a really nice job reviewing that with you. That's one of the most important pieces that professional development staff can use in order to do this planning and to work with teachers. What I'd like to do now is let's go to Power Up Your Classroom and go back to the ELA instructional guides. Let's take a look first at pre-writing. Judy did a nice job of giving you an overview of that. But the one thing that I thought I would focus on for you is, Carolyn, if you scroll down a little bit, there should be a tech section that we can take a look at. Not teach with tech, but a little farther down. Let's see where it is. Ongoing assessment. Oh, here. And actually, you can stay where we are. Let's take a look at the ongoing assessment. If you notice in number 1, it says encourage students to begin their digital writing portfolios using platforms such as Google Drive or Evernote or another one listed as 3 rings. One of the nice features of our instructional strategy guides is that all of the recommended technology resources have direct links. So that's a very nice feature, and what the PD facilitators did was they used this and allowed the staff members to actually link right into the resource and then begin to work on and think about how can I actually use this resource with my children and with my students. Carolyn, let's move over to the drafting guide. Let's leave the pre-writing. And then please scroll down to review the research. Okay, so as Judy mentioned, there are research articles in here. Each guide lists research-based articles that support the teaching strategies and suggestions within each guide. And again, each article title has a direct link to the article. So what the PD facilitator was able to do was choose particular articles that she was interested in and actually, as part of the PLC, focus on one, link to it, and talk with teachers about how that particular article supports their teaching of writing skills. Thank you, Carolyn. Now let's move to the third guide on reviewing. Now you'll notice, of course, as Judy also mentioned, on the right-hand side you will see connections to the Common Core standards. And if you scroll down a bit more, you will also see related blog posts and related resources. Each of our guides contains these resources for you to use in your training. And the PD facilitators at Brightview were able to connect into these as well, link into these, and use these as part of the discussion during the professional learning community. Let's look at another excellent resource at this point. Carolyn, please open up the drafting guide and click on the introductory presentation on drafting strategies. As we mentioned, there is a slide rocket that lists a number of important pieces of information. In this one, we're looking at the key elements of drafting as one of the slides, and then it will continue on. This is an excellent resource for professional development facilitators to use because it's short, it's to the point, it emphasizes certain pieces of information, and they become a stepping point, or a starting point really, for discussion within the professional learning community. So this is a really nice resource. Now let's move to the reviewing guide. And here we're going to scroll down to Discover Lesson in Action. And let's open it up, Reviewing Writing to Edit and Revise. In this case, the classroom example is a 6th grade class that did a compare and contrast with, let me find here, they were in the midst of a unit on ancient Greece, and they're doing a compare and contrast with respect to life in Athens and Sparta. What I really wanted to look at is the assessment piece down near the bottom. Assessment is such an important part of teaching writing, and the nice thing here is a revision and an editing checklist that the PD facilitator was able to use during the professional learning community meetings so that teachers could use these as guides for developing their own checklists in their classroom for teaching revision and editing, and allowing students to actually peer edit and self-edit. And it's a really, really nice feature of this particular strategy guide. At this point, I hope this gives you an overview of the many ways that Power Up What Work resources can be used to provide professional development for your staff in teaching writing skills. There are a lot of things on the website to look at. Please make sure you go in, take a look, print out what you need, go back, tell everybody about it, because it's an excellent resource. Thank you.
Tina, thank you so much. That was terrific. I want to ask you a couple of things, Tina. So I'm trying to imagine if we were in the here reviewing, and if we were open the slideshow. Caroline, could you open the slideshow again? And can you get up to the section of the questions where we have discussion questions? Because we didn't get far enough. I didn't go far enough when I and Tina didn't, but we have discussion questions embedded right in the slideshow. And I'm wondering, Tina, in the PLCs, did they stop and use these discussion questions, or did they look at the slideshow beforehand and send each other, did they have a discussion area where online discussion where they discuss these questions? I'm just wondering, how did the facilitator use these discussion questions?
Good question, Judy. What the facilitator did was she showed, in this particular one, she showed the slide rocket or the slideshow to the entire group, and then she broke the teachers down into 3 smaller groups, and each smaller group addressed one particular question for discussion, came up with some information that they wanted to share with the larger group, and then after a period of time, everyone got back together and reported out on the results of their discussion.
That's great. That gives a really nice image about how this could be used. I like that. Now, I know that in the PLCs they were supposed to be doing curriculum units, some writing units. Did they share those afterwards online with each other? And then when they got back into their PLCs, did they debrief or give each other additional strategies that they could use to strengthen that?
Judy, what they did was they shared, they shared with each other the results of some of the work that they did with their students in the classroom. They brought that information back and then talked about what worked, what did not work, what they might do differently next time. And one of the things that the professional development facilitator did was she had the teachers were, as I said earlier, were grades 4 to 8. What she did was she set the groups up so that there were teachers in each group from different grades. Typically what you think of is you put the 4th grade teachers together, the 5th grade teachers together, so on and so forth. She wanted to mix it up a bit. So she put teachers from the different grades. It was a cross-grade, smaller group, and they were able to really learn from each other because, as we all know, children come to us with different skill levels, different needs, and different levels of ability. So a 4th grade teacher might have a student that's really functioning in 6th grade in a particular topic, or in reverse, a 6th grade teacher might have a student that is below grade level, and so they were able to really share ideas with each other.
That's great. I remember you telling also, this I do remember, about how they were using iPads and how they took advantage of anything for reviewing where students could hear the audio recording of what they had written to help them listen as they saw the text. They were using some different editing strategies of inserting notes and highlighted different text. The way teachers use that to give kids feedback by putting notes into their drafts. I was really impressed when you told me about how they used to be in that way. I also liked when you told me that they had used those blogs as ways to share some of the student writing. And that kids becoming very proficient, and their school's website was really doing very well. So remembering some of the highlights that you had shared.
They really are, and one of the other things that they did, because they were a smaller school, having only 4, 5, 6, having only 5 grades in the building, they did some what we call buddy classes. They actually had an older class. They buddied up an older class with a younger class, and they were able to work with, the older kids were able to work with the younger kids and providing some help to them around editing. And what that also did was that empowered the older students in feeling really good about the skills that they had because they were able to help younger students.
Right. I'm going to share that in one school where we're using some of the strategies for the pre-writing and the drafting and the reviewing. They went even further, and they went and they noticed that right here on Power Up we have an instructional strategy guide on presenting. You could open that one up. But it did is it said, not only do we want to be able to write, but of course because of Universal Design for Learning, where there are multiple expression, we want to help students think about all the ways in which they present their information in multimedia ways. And if you go down, Caroline, I wanted to show you Teach with Tech, and we have a great lesson in action. We have a very focused, quick view right here about presenting, how to make presentations and using multimedia for presentation. So I hope, and I know the teachers in the school I'm thinking of really found that very valuable as a way to extend their writing process and help make presentations. And because they saw such overlap in the common core between the writing and the presenting, it was just a natural outgrowth of their writing process. Does anyone else want to comment? Tracy or Tina or?
This is Tina. I'd like to just mention one more thing that the PD facilitator did. She focused a lot on, in the PLCs, on teaching reviewing skills and using our resources for that, because that's more challenging than teaching editing skills. And it's more challenging for the students, and it's something that she emphasized with her teachers.
Right. I know. I think the other thing I remember is that you told me about their e-portfolios, their online portfolios, and for writing, and how that became a wonderful feedback loop, not only between the teacher and students, but the peer feedback as well. So those online portfolios played an important part, which is something that people might want to go to our ELA formative assessment section, where they can get even more information about formative assessment in English language arts.
And the other piece that's
electronic portfolio.
The other piece important about that.
Go ahead.
The other piece important about that is that of course, like most kids, they're very sophisticated at those ages in their ability to create things online. So the e-portfolios gave them the opportunity to be creative with the various ways in which they wanted to demonstrate their writing skills. And teachers were also able to use those portfolios as a way to communicate with parents.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Of course, that's very important. Very important. So this is terrific. I'm wondering, Caroline, could you just go back to the and I'd like to just put up there that playlist, because that's that we've started using as we talk about how people can pull materials from Power Up. There are different ways that you could organize your writing playlist. This is the story that Tina told us about one school, how they were going to, how their facilitators use it for professional learning communities. But given the wealth of information you're using Power Up, you can pull different aspects of Power Up and meaningful playlists for yourself and for your own playlist if you're designing your own professional, or if you're designing professional development that involves collaborating with others, as I said, in professional learning community, team meetings, grade level meetings, different ways in which professional development is happening. Let's go to the next slide, because we wanted to remind you that this webinar was just one of a series. There'll be 2 more next. And we hope also that you can go and check archived websites, Power Up YouTube page. And if you would like a website for your school, don't hesitate to contact us. We love with schools and think about how to customize the webinars to meet your needs. So are there any last or questions? Tracy or Tina?
I just want to say thank you for listening, and everyone please check out these excellent resources. I'm a former classroom teacher, and I wish I'd had them when I was teaching.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you, Tracy, and we hope to hear from you. Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thanks so much, Judy and Tina, for these valuable insights about ways that you can use Power Up both for your own professional development and also working with groups who are collaborating to enhance teaching and learning. We look forward to hearing from you all soon. Take care.